Good morning. Is this microphone on? No? Okay. Is it? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Can't hear me? Sorry, some assistance, please. It seems this microphone is not on. Good morning. Great. Okay. Good morning, everyone, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. If you can please take your seats, we are ready to begin. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all this morning to our Human Rights celebration, celebrating 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and 30 years of democracy in South Africa. Human rights is an enabler for an advancing constitutional democracy being our theme today. My name is Crystal Pillay. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at the Human Rights Commission, and I have the very interesting task of directing your program today. Before we start, I think I would like to acknowledge a few dignitaries in our presence today and other representatives from organs of state. The following ambassadors, high commissioners are representing embassies today. We have the Embassy of Colombia, the Embassy of Lebanon, the Embassy of the Central African Republic, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the Embassy of the United Mexican States, and the High Commission of Jamaica, the High Commission of Mauritius, the Lesotho High Commission, and the Acting High Commissioner representing today the High Commission of Sri Lanka. I would also like to acknowledge representatives of embassies and high commissions as well. We have the Embassy of Brazil, Spain, Embassy of Switzerland to South Africa, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mauritius, and Namibia. We have the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany, the Kingdom of Morocco, the Embassy of the Republic of Angola, the Embassy of the Republic of Azerbaijan, the Embassy of the Republic of the Philippines, the Embassy of the United States of America, the Embassy of Tunisia, the Embassy of Turkey, and the Norwegian Embassy and the Kenyan High Commission. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Justice Dumisa Ntsebeza, the judge of the African Court of Human Rights, who is also our guest speaker, who will be delivering our guest lecture today. I would like to also acknowledge Ms. Shireen Saeed from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, the DDG. Ms. Abigail Noko, the regional representative of the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights. And we also have Ms. Ismail Mtemunye from the Gauteng Department of Sports, Arts, and Culture with us today. We have representatives from Chapter 9 institutions as well, which I would quickly read out, commissioners from the Human Rights Commission and commissioners from the Public Service Commission and the Land Claims Commission. And that is our long list for this morning. Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome again to our Human Rights lecture today. I'm just going to take us through the program. We have a short program today, but a very interesting one. We have messages of support from the Department of Justice, which would be done on behalf of the Minister of Justice, and that is Ms. Shireen Saeed, the DDG. We have messages of support from Ms. Abigail Noko, and messages of support from Commissioner Ntuli from the Human Rights Commission. And thereafter, we would have our Justice taking us through his guest lecture today. We will give you all an opportunity to ask questions, make comments, or any reflections from your side once our lecture is done. And thereafter, we will have a vote of thanks from Mr. Mkhize. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to call upon Ms. Shireen Saeed, the DDG of the Department of Justice, to deliver the address or message of support from the Honorable Minister of Justice, Mr. Ronald Lamola. Ms. Said.
Thank you, Crystal. Good morning. It's nice to be back in one's home country, so one can say all protocol observed. If only so that I don't repeat myself as I read out the minister's a message of support. Despite our best attempts last night to ensure that he could make it today, we had a bit of a crisis that he has to be meeting with other ministers this morning, so his sincerest apologies. I now read out his message, and I'll stay on script. I do have a tendency to go off script at times, but I'll let you know in advance, so you attribute all of that off script to me. Mr. Turk, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, as we know, will have that message of support. Honorable Justice Dumisa Ntsebeza, Mr. Chris Nissen, Chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, and other commissioners present here today, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and we're very pleased to see you in our numbers. That was off script. Representatives of the international organizations, civil society, ladies and gentlemen. The 21st of March was declared, I was wondering why I couldn't see this so well. The 21st of March was declared as International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This day was declared in solidarity with what was Sharpeville Day and now commemorated as Human Rights Day annually. The profound impact of Sharpeville and the subsequent constitutional developments in South Africa reverberated globally and inspired the day for the elimination of racial discrimination. We, as the governing party, were intentional in changing this day and others that marked historical milestones to commence the process of healing, reconciliation, and nation building. As we enter Human Rights Month, we are reminded of the sacrifices that accompanied the struggle for the attainment of democracy in South Africa. The Sharpeville massacres of 1961 and the Langa Uitenhage massacre of 1985 stand as an important symbol of the brutal realities of apartheid. Meeting at the women's jail and again housing institutions supporting democracy was again intentional to reclaim these spaces that epitomize brutality and dehumanization to one of respect for equality and tolerance. High Commissioner, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, of course, the compass driving us as a nation is our Constitution. Whilst we have come a long way, we have a longer way to go. The South African Democratic Government has worked tirelessly to promote universal and fundamental human rights, as is enshrined in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, especially in the Bill of Rights. The Constitution obliges the state to redress inequalities, tackle racial exclusion policies, and improve the quality of life for individual citizens in order to advance an inclusive society based on democratic and social transformative values. It obligates the state to roll back the shadow of history and broaden opportunities for all, inasmuch as there is enough evidence to show that the country has made significant progress in advancing fundamental human rights and stabilizing racial tensions. We have much more work to do in galvanizing social cohesion. As we approach 30 years of our constitutional democracy, we remain cognizant of our country's radical transition from the oppressive apartheid regime to a constitutional democracy committed to the creation of a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. We are also aware that we have to strengthen the various institutions of governance, invest further in social cohesion, and expand the levels of constitutional awareness so that our people can truly experience the benefits of this free and democratic society. High Commissioner, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Justice Ntsebeza for honoring our call and taking time out from his busy schedule to share his insights and contribute to the roadmap for where we should head in the next 30 years. We are proud of the role he is playing on the continent and value his experiences and guidance for our next chapters as a country. More than ever, we need countries that will uphold the rule of law with the independent judiciaries and strong institutions of democracy, and with a strong civil society movements and activism to prevent the recession and manipulation of democracies in the interests of a few. High Commissioner, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, it is hoped that today's lecture, whilst acknowledging the successes and whilst acknowledging successes, that much of South Africa's challenges on human rights and inequalities are still reflected in race, gender, class, and poverty. Notwithstanding, I remain inspired and encouraged daily as I meet people from all over the country and engage with their experiences by their resilience and determination to ensure that we overcome the remnants of apartheid, with our Constitution as the North Star steering us towards aspiring to its ideals. I thank everybody present here for your support, for the support you have given to us and continue to provide, illustrated by the attendance and the value we place on advancing human rights and constitutional democracies, not just for South Africa, but for this continent and the rest of the world. I am saddened that I cannot be in attendance today, but I look forward to the feedback from members of my department. High Commissioner, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to also take this opportunity of thanking all of you, and especially the organizers, namely the Regional Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the South African Human Rights Commission, Constitutional Hill, and in association with my department for arranging this dialogue. I wish you well in your discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Said, for those reflections. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, on the 10th of December 2023, we had it marked a very significant day for human rights globally and in South Africa. It marked 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and its commemoration focused on the theme of freedom, equality, and justice for all, and a high-level event where global pledges were made for a vision for the future of human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a milestone document in the history of human rights, being a common standard of achievements for all people and all nations. It sets out for the first time fundamental human rights that must be universally protected, and is widely recognized as having inspired and paved the way for the adoption of more than 70 human rights treaties applied today on a permanent basis as global and regional levels. Today, ladies and gentlemen, let me have the opportunity to invite Ms. Abigail Noko, who is the regional representative for the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights in South Africa, and she's going to give us some technical information, a little bit more detail on the Declaration of Human Rights and information on promotion and protection of human rights to the 14 countries in the region. Thank you very much. Ms. Abigail Noko.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I would like to also acknowledge Ms. Shireen Said, the Deputy Director General of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, Commissioner Ntuli, always wonderful to see you. from the South African Human Rights Commission, and the ambassadors, high commissioners, and members of the diplomatic corps. I really want to express my gratitude to you for being with us today, and I'll take the lead from the program director in recognizing those of you that are here. I'd like to also pay tribute to representatives of civil society, academia, as well as my United Nations colleagues and friends who are with us today. I am grateful to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, as well as the South African Human Rights Commission, for their collaboration and efforts in bringing this important event together. I am honored to deliver this message of support as we commence Human Rights Month and welcome our esteemed guest of honor, Judge Dumisa Ntsebeza. At the outset, I should underscore that this is no ordinary Human Rights Month. As we gather today and at other events during the course of this month, we are marking an important moment in the history and legacy of human rights. 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 30 years of democracy in South Africa, and more than 60 years since the Sharpeville massacre. In recognition of these important parallels, we have launched our 30 for 30 social media campaign this month. 30 years of democracy, 30 articles of the Universal Declaration for Human Rights to educate, inspire, and advance the promise of human rights for all. These anniversaries are not simply markers of time, but opportunities to reflect on the journey we've shared, the advances, and the recommitment that is needed. When member states and partners convened in December for a high-level event commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it provided a critical opportunity for robust reflection on our progress and challenges in upholding human rights, and inspire discussions on how we can collectively create a more just future. As a result, the High Commissioner has put forward human rights solutions that set out 8 key areas, which are summarized as guiding renewed action for peace, economies that work for people and planet, effective governance, and guardrails for digital and scientific progress. It broadens the way we think about rights in ways that can transform societies and our global community. So as we meet in this Human Rights Month, in a place that tells a story of 30 years of democracy, we are reminded yet again that protecting and promoting human rights demands a collective and concerted effort by everyone involved, united in the will to make the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Constitution a living reality. Without steadfast dedication to human rights, we risk eroding the hard-fought gains made by humanity across the globe at great cost. Our journey towards a world where human rights are fully realized for each and every person remains incomplete. Inequality deepens, injustices take root, discrimination and exclusion multiplies, and peace is disrupted. Human rights are facing strong pushback, but this is not a failure of human rights. It is a failure of the lack of respect for human rights. South Africa offers a powerful counterpoint to this narrative. The South Africa conceived of 30 years ago draws expressly and deliberately from global norms such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And as such, we look to South Africa for many things. A rainbow nation of hope and inspiration, heroes and heroines that have triumphed over injustice and an indelible mark of pain and suffering, and people who choose to stand up for human rights daily as a value and principle, but also as a matter of conviction. As a result, 30 years of democracy have brought about remarkable progress. The peaceful transition from apartheid remains a global point of reference. South Africa has showcased institutions that work to protect human rights, It has demonstrated the expansion of freedoms for all, historically marginalized, and the justiciability of economic and social rights. This nation, with a painful past, rooted in oppression, colonialism, and apartheid, emerged with a constitution widely recognized as one of the best in the world, enshrining human rights not simply as an aspiration, but as guarantees in a comprehensive manner. Today, almost 30 years since so many South Africans lined up in long queues for freedom in the country's first democratic elections, we must recognize the important milestones in paving the way forward to addressing current challenges. These challenges include persistent economic inequalities, high levels of violence, violence against women and girls, crime, social cohesion, access to public services, and social unrest, to name but a few. South Africa's vast disparities require urgent and meaningful solutions. These solutions are within reach, as evidenced by the progress that has already taken place. It is for each of us to continue efforts to find solutions that strengthen, not undermine, the democratic gains of this nation. The theme of this lecture was chosen to inspire hope and to rekindle the spirit that human rights can propel South Africa into a future beyond this 30th anniversary that eradicates inequality, poverty, unemployment, promotes peace and inclusive development, and builds a fairer and greener society. I have no doubt that our esteemed guest, Judge Dumisa Ntsebeza, will do just that. His tireless efforts, working both nationally and the region for the just cause of human rights, gives him the perfect vantage point to share insights and experiences that are invaluable in our collective pursuit of human rights for everyone, everywhere. Judge Ntsebeza, we are deeply honored and grateful that you have taken the time from your busy schedule to be with us today. And we commend the contributions that you have made both at home and afar. Distinguished guests, in previous events commemorating 75 years, I have showcased our special edition Ubuntu Vision sunglasses. These are designed to carry a message of hope, to see the world differently through the lens of human rights. They are a reminder that the power of human rights lies in the fact that they belong to everybody. It is that power that you and I have that nobody can take away that make human rights universal, resilient, and formidable. Human rights have carried the message of a just and free democratic society that so many in this country have fought for and died for, and they must continue to do so. Let freedom, equality, and justice for all prevail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noko, for those profound words and insights, reminding us that while we are celebrating 30 years of democracy in South Africa, and although we've made such remarkable improvements or remarkable progress, we still face a lot of challenges as a country. And while we made significant progress in advancing human rights since the advent of democracy in 1994, as we were just reminded by Ms. Noko, there are still a number of challenges that need to be addressed, including issues around poverty, discrimination, inequality, unemployment, gender-based violence, climate change, and access to basic services. And despite these challenges, there are also several opportunities to advance human rights in South Africa. Civil organizations and human rights defenders have played a significant role in advocating for human rights, as we have heard, particularly socio-economic rights. And a strong independent judiciary has also been established and has played a vital role in safeguarding and promoting access to justice. The South African Human Rights Commission itself continues to be a leading institution in the promotion and the protection and monitoring of a culture of human rights. The chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, Commissioner Chris Nissen, has apologized. He is unable to be with us today. We do, however, have Commissioner Ntuli with us, excuse me, and Commissioner Ntuli will now be giving us a message of support on behalf of the Commission itself. If I could please welcome Ms. Ntuli. Thank you. Commissioner Ntuli.
You clap before I speak. Good morning to everyone. It's a full house. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for attending this very important engagement this morning. The ambassadors and high commissioners, members of all diplomatic corps who are here, the United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights Office, the regional representative, my sister Abigail, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, represented by our DDG, commissioners from other Chapter 9 institutions that are here this morning, commissioners from the South African Human Rights Commission that are here this morning, all of our guests who are present here as well as online, we greet you all, and of course our esteemed guest speaker, Justice Dumisa Ntsebeza. Welcome and thank you so much, Advocate Ntsebeza. We are gathered here today to commemorate 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and 30 years of the South African democracy and freedom. And as we do so, we have the opportunity to reflect and to take stock of the progress that we have achieved in our collective efforts to promote, to develop, and to protect human rights in our country and around the world. Human rights have contributed immensely as a foundation for living, which has shaped the world post its adoption in 1948. South Africa has, on several occasions, reaffirmed its commitment to upholding this pact in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Importantly, South Africa, as a state party to international human rights treaties that stemmed from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, most notably, for example, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, as well as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. These core human rights covenants, taken together with the UDHR, have become known as the International Bill of Rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the South African Constitution, share principles and values that seek to promote and protect the rights to equality and freedom from discrimination for all people. This year marks 30 years since South Africa's democracy. It is a milestone that does need to be celebrated. And as we do mark and celebrate this milestone, we have a serious task to reflect on how different today's South Africa is to its pre-1994 apartheid-era version. As we continue to pursue development along with respect for the rights, for all rights and inherent equality for all, we have a task as well as a responsibility to remember the struggles fought for this democracy, the lives that were lost in the process, and the gains that have been made in ensuring racial and economic equity and human rights for all. We are also tasked to remember that while South Africa has one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, with a Bill of Rights that entrenches socio-economic rights, this country is the most unequal society in the world. Despite our significant strides towards freedom and equality, the nation continues to battle, amongst others, the challenges of extreme inequality, deepening poverty, uneven and racialized economic development, high unemployment rates, corruption, crime, and the highest global rates of gender-based violence. Therefore, a lot still needs to be done to achieve the rights as enshrined in the Constitution. These challenges, if not prioritized and resolved, pose the biggest threat to democracy and stability. Central to the challenges of South Africa is the land reform project. It remains a grave mystery and continued injustice that the very reason for the struggle, which was to reclaim the dispossessed lands of indigenous people and communities, is yet incomplete. There's an urgency to the need for this country and its people, as well as its leadership, to address the land reform project, including land tenure, redistribution, and restitution, apartheid spatial planning, housing, and basic services. The mineral resources of this land should benefit the broader population and not a minority. Further, racism in our country remains persistent and unabated. It is still a symbol of social inequality, youth unemployment, gender-based violence, deepening poverty, and unequal access to education and access to health are also key challenges faced by our democratic dispensation. Program Director, it's important to protect democratic institutions like Chapter 9 institutions and other constitutional institutions. They are the pillar of our democracy, established to ensure political stability for generations to come. On behalf of the South African Human Rights Commission, it is a pleasure and a privilege to welcome you all to this Human Rights Lecture. It is our hope as the South African Human Rights Commission that by the end of this lecture, we will all have key takeaway points which will help us to imagine, to reimagine, and perhaps to also redream how human rights should continue being an enabler to advance constitutional democracy in our ever-evolving society. On behalf of the chairperson of the Commission and all commissioners, we would like to dedicate this lecture to our former deputy chairperson, Ms. Priscilla Jana. Ms. Jana, a fierce and brave human rights lawyer, an umkhonto wesizwe combatant, diplomat, and parliamentarian, passed away in October 2020. She defended both the former President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, as well as the brave Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu. Although various governments, including the United Nations, international organizations, groups, and prominent individuals, attempted to intercede on behalf of Solomon Mahlangu, who was hung at the Pretoria Central Prison in 6 April 1979, they failed. The day of execution of Solomon Mahlangu is viewed by many as deliberately chosen to coincide with the 327th anniversary of Jan van Riebeeck's arrival in the Cape in 1652. And in an apparent defiance of the then Prime Minister P.W. Botha, Mr. Mahlangu's last message was, before he was executed, and I quote,